I can do
Good
it. I can do it again.
morning, everybody. How are y'all doing? Happy Saturday or Sunday. Yes, happy Sunday. And we are the Impractical Blacksmiths, Yamez, Alexis, and Adam. Uh, I almost forgot what day it was today. Anyway, um, we got a lot of fun stuff to talk about, sort of, I guess. Um, a little conversation that happened in the pre-show that we're carrying over here. And you all know how that goes. I already forgot what it was. So I guess we'll just move on to how was your week? Two of them, to be precise.
All right. Yeah, my week. I'll go. Yeah, my week was pretty decent. I had an entire week off, and then like worked last Saturday and was able to pull off. I don't know, like 26 hours in one shift. I don't remember, but it was just enough to be like under the radar. So I got like all of my week's work in one day, and which was enough to pay bills. So no worries. And then this week was pretty decent with like almost 80. And so I'm just kind of saving money, saving money, saving money, working my ass off every chance I get. And I haven't gotten any progress on some of the other little side projects I've had going on because the weather's kind of been non-conducive, and it also doesn't help when you're working a 16, 18-hour night shift, and it's like you get back here at 8, 9, 10 in the morning, and it's like, crap, I got to sleep. I mean, I almost violated that 5-minute rule. Anyways, yeah, so it's been a decent week. A lot of stuff that I've got going on has fallen in line. There's been, shall we say, I don't know how to put this. There has been an interesting development that has thrown a wrinkle into my long-term plans, and I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but I'm going to find out. And that's all I can do, and I can't really say much more about it than that. Um, uh, and yeah, let's see. Yeah, my main truck is broke down. It's probably going to be broke down for a while. Tail roller went bad. They got to pull the whole thing off, send it to a machine shop, and oh, for frack's sakes, here, when you send something to a machine shop, you'll be lucky to get it back in 2 or 3 months. Everything is so backlogged, so that kind of sucks. I'm driving the spare for the 78 days that remain. Um, and other than that, I mean, life's been good. Well, I mean, in my little bubble, life's been good. As far as the rest of life, I mean, in my personal opinion, everything's kind of falling apart. But you know what? It is what it is, and it's all outside of my control. So I'm not going to stress over it. I'm not going to. I'm not going to. I am not going to have an anxiety attack over everything that's going on because I can't do anything about it. It's all stuff that's out of my control. All I can do is keep on keeping on and adjust my um, plans and outlook accordingly. And that's some stuff I went over with my therapist. Is like, I'm like, I'm kind of freaking out, man. And he's like, is that helping anything? And I'm like, no. And he's like, then stop. Just tell yourself this is something I can't fix. It's like it's okay to worry about something that maybe you can do something about. It's okay to worry about having a decision to make and worrying about making the right one. These are normal things to worry about. Worrying about things that you cannot control is a waste of energy and a waste of time. And so when I start getting that little spiral where I start freaking out about something, I'm just like, all right, chill out. Nothing I can do. Nothing at all. No matter how loud I scream, no matter how big a sign I wave, nobody's going to give a crap. So I'm just going to live my life and adjust accordingly and do the best I can to get by. And like I had a post on Facebook yesterday. Find the thing that makes you smile. Find the thing or the someone that makes you smile every day. Because happiness is descent. And and I honestly believe that, and I'm really working hard to make sure I find that happiness every day, and try to also um, impose that happiness on other people. You know what I mean? Like not impose is the wrong word, but I can't really think of the one I mean. But to imbue others with happiness by me being happy and polite and in a good mood. Because I really do think that stuff is infectious. I get to work and somebody's having a bad day. I tell a good joke, and I mean just and it's like, and I mean I currently have the freedom to really tell the jokes that I haven't been able to tell before. That's just been eating me up when somebody says some stuff on the radio, and I'm just like, oh, I got a good one, but I can't say that. I can say that now, and because I don't give a dang, and I'm just rolling with it and making people laugh and loving life. So that's my 2 weeks as I've adjusted to the new reality that is my questionable existence. Adam, how's your 2 weeks been?
Um, so it's finally dried out enough this week for me to actually start doing things. And I say dried out enough very loosely. It's still really wet and boggy here, and the fact that I nearly bogged my tractor up a couple of times whilst doing yard work and stuff like that, which means that I'm going to be very shortly back on track to getting the work power. I'll be able to start digging the trench for power to the workshop and all that type of thing. I need to do a bit more clearing and stuff first, so I can mitigate the fire risk. But once that's done, then I can get into trenching and all that type of stuff. So it's been most of the week on the tractor. I've had a hectic week. So my HEMA club, the president of my HEMA club, the Historical European Martial Arts, are sword fighting. I don't know if anyone noticed, but my swords are currently missing because they're in the back of my car. The president is moving down to Adelaide so it's the bottom end of our country from the top end, and so we had to do an election for a new president, and his partner was the treasurer as well. So I had to elect a new president, new treasurer. So being busy with that. As part of that, we also incorporated my other martial arts that I do, the traditional Chinese martial arts, because we do weapons with that as well. So we incorporated that into our and into the umbrella of our HEMA group, our sword fighting group. So I had to book training facilities for that. And then farewells and all that type of thing. So I've had an absolute flat out week. And on top of that, 2025 for me seems to be the year of getting unwell. I currently raise my glasses because everything's blurry. I have infection in this eye. So that's the reason why I've been basically wearing my glasses constantly so I can see things clearly. So I'm just hoping that this is because I don't get sick as a general rule. I've been pretty healthy for most of my life, and when things go wrong, they usually go wrong rather severely. I end up in hospital. So I'm just hoping that these little niggling illnesses I've had since basically New Year's are just the run of ill health that I will have until for the next 10, 15 years. That's what I'm hoping. So yeah, that's basically been my week. Has been flat out on the tractor, getting things organised, getting things cleaned up so that I can get into when it gets to dry season, I'm able to get stuff done and set up the workshop and get things running. I can do that properly. That includes fixing a driveway and all that type of stuff. And once that happens, then once I get workshop set up, I can put in a proposal for the YMCA to get some of the teens and stuff out here to learn smithing and contribute to my local community. That's the hope anyway. So yeah, what about you, Yamez? Tell us about where you are at the moment, because you're not at home.
What? What?
We can tell you're not at home.
This is my couch. This is my. No, I'm not at home. Yeah, I'm in Lancaster, New Britain. Yeah.
All right, we're outside the 5 minutes.
What?
Oh, they're the profanity in the first 5 minutes of a show automatically demonetizes it. So I went first, and I think I went long enough. I mean, we're 15 minutes deep, so now it's like, you can do whatever you want. But so it's
Oh,
continue on. We can talk about this later.
yeah, no,
I was talking to myself, and it escalated.
I'm at my brother and sister-in-law's house watching their animals. Um, they've got, I think, 16 cats in that room back there, about 4 or 5 dozen cats in that room there, and about 17 dogs in that room there. Um, so yeah, I'm watching their place. They're in Nashville picking up 2 more dogs and 6 more cats. So yeah,
Seriously?
no. They've got 2 dogs, 5 cats, split. I don't know which way. Every time I open the cat doors, I get judged. There's judgmental, fuzzy faces. Um, so yeah, no, that's why I'm not at my place right now. That's why I'm using my laptop camera instead of my G7. All that fun stuff. I don't have my shotgun mic sitting in my face. Um, but yeah, as for how was my 14 days, um, pretty good. Work is picking up. I know I keep saying that. It is still picking up. Tomorrow we start uh, a job that was basically bid at 200 hours, 200 man hours for it. So uh, I doubt it'll take that long, but you know, couple weeks of solid work is really good. And then other bids that we've been working on, and we're getting some houses. We got 2 restaurants we're looking at to work on. One of them we're working on. One of them we're getting ready to start. Um, so yeah, picking up. I actually did get into the shop and get in, like actually heat some metal and hit it with hammers and grind and make a thing from things. Uh,
What?
yeah, I made a grinderashi. Okay, if none of y'all know what that is, I just made it up. It's like a
Yeah, yeah. So you fabricable the kiridashi?
no, I made mokume gane. I took a couple quarters, smashed it
Hmm.
together, and then forged it into a little kiridashi style. This shitty camera. I know there's a way to do this where it like gets it to focus. But yeah, anyway, this little kiridashi style mokume uh, grinder scoop. You know, scrapes the bottom of the grinder, scrapes, and then it's got enough room to scoop and put into a bowl or a spliff or whatever. Just I wanted something nicer than the back of a freaking pen, you know. So yeah, there's there's your photo, John Burnell, at not believing me.
That's because it's been so long since you've actually hit metal.
Yeah. Also, I ground
I mean,
out.
I know it's like I'm totally thinking pictures, or it didn't happen.
I'm live saying here. Look, I did it.
Yeah, but that's just the result. Like no one's actually seen you pick up a hammer in that long.
Well,
No, I
what?
mean, and I'm not going to lie. I mean, there was kind of a discussion of whether or not you were actually going to ever blacksmith again.
Yeah, probably.
Like like
I'll bet
like
there's
like like
discussion.
thinking like maybe you kind of like lost the spark, and you're just never going to do it again. And it's like, fuck, man, I don't know. I mean, but I mean, I get it. I mean, like in your area, the weather's a lot of times in non-conducive. It's either storming and nasty out, or it's a million freaking degrees with the mosquitoes so thick you could just grab them out of the air, and it's like,
right?
what are you going to do? And I know I've been there, and it can be miserable unless it's like the middle of the night.
Yeah. Oh, summer's brutal out there in the shop. Um, uh, and about spring and fall are really the only times that it's kind of chill. You know, winters most of the winter, but so there's some of the winter where it's like it's sharp outside is the best way to describe it. You know, but yeah, no, I'll get out to the shop again. Um, finished. I still got to heat treat it and do the final grind on it, but finished my brother Josh's Milwaukee fastback knife. Forged some Damascus. We've been working on this for a couple of years. Shows how much I like doing knives. But finished the forging of it and the grinding. The rough grinding. Um, what's it? Plug welded a pin into it and drilled the holes in the proper spot. Basically, the he's got it with him. I should have kept it. Um, the blade for a locking folding knife. Um, got it trimmed and fit into the handle. Now I got to take it out, heat treat it, clean it up, and etch it. But a Damascus uh, blade for a Milwaukee folding knife.
Nice.
I suck at grinding.
I've got. Oh yeah, yeah. What, man? But you got that fancy grinder. I mean,
I mean, it's got one speed.
and I was. That's right. You don't have a VFD.
Well, I do, but it's for
Hey,
240.
excuses. I mean, at the end of the day, the people work for
No,
thousands
but
of years on big rotating stones laying on their stomach. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
yeah, but when you've got a 2x72, fuck that stone. The problem with his 272 is when you turn it on, it's scary. I mean, like, I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
kidding you. The first time I turned it on, it scared the crap out of me. I was like, "Holy shit! If I
Right.
get my finger too close to that,
Yep.
like I'll be down to the second knuckle in less than a second." I mean, like,
It is.
it's
It
it's
roars.
scary fast,
You turn that thing on, you
especially
got to
with
reach.
a you put a 40 grit ceramic belt on that son of a bitch, and it's just like, oh
it,
my god, it is
it's
a
a hog.
monster.
It's a hog, and powerful.
Yeah.
And powerful. It's a 1 horsepower motor. Um, straight wheel to belt. So
Oh, yeah, it's a scary machine. I mean,
I
like, and I,
bel
I remember having trouble figuring out how to turn it on. Then he showed me, and then I'm like,
it's
"Where's the
just a
controller so I can turn this shit down?"
I
There
said
isn't one.
it's that switch right there that I screwed to the table. It's my 2x72 is like bolted and built into a table.
It's hey,
Which-
it has a speed control. It's
Yeah.
on or off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in order to slow it down, you got to work the switch like on off, on off.
Exactly.
Believe it or not, I have a 3 horsepower motor that I was gonna put on that. But I felt that was a bit too much, you know, especially with no VFD. I really thought that was too much. Um, yeah.
Well, I mean, even with that 1 horsepower motor, you're hard pressed to bog it down. I mean, you
Oh
you
yeah,
really gotta be putting the beans to it to bog it down.
I've never been able to bog it. Even doing
The thing,
hammers, with
you're
oh,
an electrician. Why don't you just grab an old? Why don't you just grab the speed controller off a
don't you
off your
Because
old
dare
he gave them
treadmill
all
or
to me.
yeah, don't you
He
dare
gave them all
bring
to me.
logic into this. Yes, yes, I could. wire in a speed control of sorts. Yes, I could even make a variac and install that into the system. I could
He's a lazy.
also
Yeah,
I could also
he
patch a
actually did.
hole in my wall. I can actually finish painting my room the way I want to. Y'all realize my room is primer and has been for 5 years.
Yeah.
Of
So
course I
he
could.
actually did have two VFDs and two motors with all of the stuff and all that. And then the year that I drove over there, he's like, "I'm never going to use these here. You can have them." So now I have them, and they're in the attic in my garage. I've got John Coffey's grinder frame. I've got the frame. The only thing I'm missing is and I have a motor. The only thing I'm missing is a contact wheel. And then, I've got the VFD, and I mean, like, I've got everything I need except for the drive wheel, not the contact wheel. I don't have a drive wheel for it. And at this point, it's kind of a moot point. But it was a nice idea, and now it's a project I'm never going to get to build. So it just is what it is. But yeah, so Yamez didn't build it because he gave it to me.
Yeah,
Because
see,
he was literally like, I'm never gonna do this.
I'm a phil, I'm a philanthropist. Phil Martin the pist. Phil
Philanthropist.
Phil Anthony Propist.
So this kind of leads into our pre-show discussion about, do you turn your computers off or do you leave them on all the time?
Wait,
And
I believe Jack Pines is in here, and Jack Pines is an IT expert,
okay,
and he would
yes,
actually know the answer to this.
yes, and
So
this does relate to blacksmithing. As we said, it ties directly into the two by
we're,
72s,
we'll tie
and we'll
and
tie
we'll
it in
tie
even
this in
tighter later.
in
This
a
is
minute.
important stuff here. So yeah,
so
um,
So to give my spin on this, I don't turn my computer off unless there's a storm, electrical storm, because we can have lightning strikes here. Actually happened to young Jake. There's some people on my that follow my Instagram have seen young Jake on my Instagram stories when we were blacksmithing last year at one of the festivals. And so he's a young knife maker that lives in my area, and his bore, the water well, the electrical power that runs to the bore got hit by lightning and fried half of his house. So in an electrical storm, I generally turn off all TVs, computers, electronics, and all that type of thing, and isolate the house, because there's a good chance if we get a lightning strike, it's going to fry a lot of stuff. So, and even if it hits down at my bore, I've got 3-phase power to the house, so it can run up the house and fry things here as well. So I generally leave my computer on, and my reasoning for that is I work in an office for my regular job, that we use the computers stay on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year, and they're under constant use, including the servers. They're never turned off. So and we haven't had a breakdown on those systems. So the keyboards might wear out, and the computer
Meath,
mouses might
Meath,
wear out.
Meathen.
But yeah, but we never turn off the actual towers. So that's my justification of leaving mine on. And not to mention, I personally believe it's less of a power drain because it doesn't have to. It's using minimal power while it's running, and it doesn't have to use the extra power to boot up. That's my justification.
All right. And so mine isn't quite the same. Mine is I mean, like, even all the way, I mean, like, all the way back to when computers first came around. I mean, not when they first came around. I mean, we're talking about late 70s there, but when we started getting them in school, and you had computer labs, and we had 286K of memory, and that was like top of the line. Obviously, this is before the internet was even a twinkle in anybody's eye. And you had the 5 1/4 floppies and all that, and when you would open up, I remember we were running MS DOS, like like we were running MS DOS. I don't think there was even a number at the time. And and then like I remember learning MS DOS 3.1 inside and out. And when it went to MS DOS 5, I was like, man, this is bullcrap. They took out all the backdoor features that I really liked. And anyways, that went on and on. But back then, it took to boot up a computer took like 5 to 10 minutes, and then to open like a word processing program. Uh, um, like I think when I was in high school, we used something called Professional Writer 2.0. And when you had to go to a DOS prompt and you would type cd backslash run backslash pw whatever. I mean, there was a whole execute command you had to type in to open Professional Writer, and then it would take another 10 minutes for a Professional Writer to open, which was a word, so you could just like do a book report or type out a book report or something like that. And it literally, you spent half of the class getting into the program to do the job you were going to do that day. But that's just the way it was, right? And so, I mean, they didn't turn the computers off. They stayed on all the time, and the computer lab always stayed at like 60 degrees. It was the coldest room in the school. And but they're always, you just don't turn the computers off. You leave them on all the time. And then like all my life since then, even when I was in the military, when the internet came around, all that, you never turned your computer off because it was always more wear and tear on the internal components, the power supply, the fans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to boot everything down and power it back up. And because you're de-energizing and energizing electrical components in and out, in and out, in and out, and they're more stable if they just stay in a constant state, like capacitors and resistors and diodes and there's lots of other things in there. But they last longer if they remain in a constant state of excitement or de-excitement. And turning the computer off and on fluctuates that state of existence, and that's what wears out a diode, a transistor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, that was the justification back in the day for never turning your computer off. You just leave it run. And if electricity is an issue, because I mean they used to be pretty power hungry back in the day, so that's where sleep mode came from, where it would just like minimize the power consumption, and it would keep everything kind of energized at a minimal level. And so that's why today, like this tower that's sitting underneath my desk is probably 7 years old. And other than Snowmageddon, when we had no electricity for 7 days, I mean, I'm not going to count that, but other than Snowmageddon, it's probably been off for 2 hours that entire 7 years, cumulatively, not all at once, but 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there. There's a storm coming. The electrical storm passes, flip it back on. So in 7 years, it's probably been off for 2 hours, not counting that 1 week. But I don't turn it off when I leave, and if I leave on vacation, it stays on because why would I turn it off? That's my justification, and and the argument is that's the way we do it because that's the way we've always done it. And in industry, that's the wrong freaking answer. It's like, why are you doing it that way? Well, that's the way we've always done it. No, that is not justification for doing it that way. Give me a more precise answer. But and in the oil field, that's a common answer. Why are you guys doing it that way? That seems pretty unsafe. It's like, well, this is the way we've always done it. We don't know another way to do it. Well, what if you did it like this and did it like, oh, but that's going to take longer, but it's safer. All right. Anyways, so yeah, the reason I leave my computer on all the time is because that's just the way we've always done it. Yamez, let's hear your take as an electrician.
Y'all are insane. Every single one of you. I cannot believe I am the only one in the world that shuts his computer off. All right. I guess the 90s just didn't happen. So, and this goes into more things too. I'm just reading the chat, losing my mind here.
I haven't even looked. I mean, I can see the chat, but I can't read it from where it's sitting. So I'm just like,
All right. So, I
guess I'll catch up.
well, maybe it's a psychological thing for me. Okay. Um, from an electrical standpoint, it's like I'm uncomfortable leaving anything on when not attended, you know, because faults can happen. Manufacturing defects can happen. Like if you don't need it, turn it off. If you're not using it, turn it off. You know, just simply cut and dry. But so I remember in school, um, like the whole Earth Day thing, and it's like, shut your lights off if you're not using it. Don't open the fridge if you don't know what you want. Like like computers were like, I back then I think like they weren't in every house, but I remember it being like, shut your computers off. Switch from paper to plastic to protect the trees, save the energy, save the earth. Use plastic. Shut everything off. Don't run your car while when you're not driving it. Turn it off when you're filling up with gas, or because of danger and blah blah blah. And don't warm your car up in the winter because it wastes blah blah blah. Like all this earth stuff, and it's like it kind of got ingrained into my head. Like shut things off if you're not using it. You know.
Yeah. Uh, uh, Comment from David Hastings. The first computer in our school didn't even have a monster.
Monitor.
I think that might be a typo.
Monitor.
Monitor, yeah. Everything was printed by a dot matrix printer. Dude, a dot matrix printer was so like therapeutic. I mean, just like sitting there, just pulling the railroad. I called them railroad tracks, but pulling the railroad tracks off the side of the printer paper. Uh, to this day, and even the sound of it, I love the sound of a dot matrix printer running because they still do. They do still exist, and I mean, albeit rare, but mostly in commercial environments. I freaking love the dot matrix printer.
I remember when the ENIAC first came out, I was like, yeah, play some Doom on it.
Uh,
When you
so
get to
yeah,
my
no, I
age, that
mean,
joke's hilarious.
right?
But
Dude,
in conclusion,
I actually have that game.
I bet
Actually,
you
I
could.
have Doom too.
I bet they could get the ENIAC to run Doom.
they have gotten a cell to run Doom.
Yeah, they
But
they grew a rat's brain and then it ran Doom.
yeah,
Neurons.
So, just on this, I was going to add in one more thing. Like we were talking about Doom, the old computers and whatever. And yes, Jack, I remember the early days of PCs, and I mean, yeah, we're probably pretty close. I mean, I'm 50, so.
What do y'all get my
But
age?
it's yeah, I mean, but no, I like Doom, whatever. Like I remember my very first real world deployment, right? Like I'm deployed to an active, um, shall we say, area. Um, I'm chair force, obviously, so it's not like I'm toting a gun or anything like that. And I'm night shift alert crew, which means like, because everybody comes in and goes to work during the day, and there's a day shift and there's a night shift, and then there's an overnight crew that we sit there and keep everything ready to go just in case the shit hits the fan at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And we've got the jets hot cocked and ready to go, meaning like all of like night the alert crew pilots will come in and they'll hot cock the jets, which means they get the instrument landing system, the navigation system, everything is aligned because all of this stuff takes time, right? And so they do all of this stuff. They put the switches, they preload the switches in a certain position so that they can run out there, climb in the jet, hit one switch, and that one switch turns on the APU. As soon as the APU comes up to speed, it fires up both motors at the same time instead of one at a time. You get a good light on both motors, and as soon as they come up to mill power, they're rolling. And so a hot cock jet can be running to the runway in under 5 minutes from the time the pilot climbed into the seat. Now, normally that's a half-hour procedure, right? But when you're alert crew, I mean, they're hot cocked, ready to rock, so to speak. And so I worked the night shift the whole time I was deployed. And my job was just to like sit there and like if the crew chiefs came running in, I gave them the toolboxes. They signed it out. I made the coffee so that the 5 gallons of coffee was ready for day shift when they showed up, and I kept the heaters running so it stayed warm because it was the middle of winter in the Alps. And that was my job. So what did I do for 45 freaking days while I was deployed? I played Wolfenstein 3D on a Windows 3.1 computer, and I beat the game. And I did it twice on various difficulty levels. And I mean, like Wolfenstein 3D was like the precursor to Doom. Good times. Loved it, but that's literally all I accomplished my entire deployment. Other than we had one time where the pilots came in, flew the jets, and came back slick with all their ordnance dropped. But yeah, I mean that was 1990.
Like the whole team?
Five. That was 1995. Was when that happened. God, that was good times. Back when you could just manipulate computers any way you wanted from a DOS prompt. Anyways, yeah.
So
how does this apply to blacksmithing?
Well, first of all, let's get to the verdict. So Jack Pine said that he that computers stay on. That's why there's sleep mode. Just to run the verdict for people who are listening and not actually reading the chat. So Jack, our resident IT expert, concluded that computers stay on, which is blowing Mez's mind. He looks very upset.
Well, you tie it into blacksmithing then.
No, you do it.
No, you do it.
That said you can do it. No, you were the one that said you could do it.
Okay. Do you leave your computers on or off? All right. Do you leave your propane forge on or off? Do you turn your forge off when you're not using it?
Well, that depends.
There, boom, tied into blacksmithing. Good night.
Yeah, I have an opinion. So does Adam.
Yep. So my gas.
You're tying it in. You're tying it in.
Look at the time.
Yeah. You're tying it in there, Yamez. I want to hear your opinion on your whether or not you're going to turn your gas forge on or off.
No.
You're just going to leave it run
all damn day.
Okay, so when I am using my gas forge, right? If I am not actively having something in the forge, or returning it quickly to the forge, I will turn it off, but only insofar as the inside remains red hot, so that when I turn the gas back on, it reignites, without me having to, manually reignite it.
And I'll bet one of you IT guys is going to be like, "That's the equivalent of sleep mode."
Exactly.
Oh my God!
That's equivalent to sleep mode, because it still has the heat. It still contains the energy in order to reignite it quickly when I'm between uses. However, when I am not going to use it for an extended period of time, then I will turn it off and let it cool. Because quite frankly, I don't have the fuel to keep it running 24 hours a day. That said, right?
Nope. You nail on the head. Nail on the head. There we go. Thank you, everybody. And so on to our final.
I haven't finished yet. However, when you look at something like, for example, Granddad's works in a industrial smelter, right? Which, it's a smelter, it's a little bit removed, but in that sense of things, they leave them on. Or in an industrial forge where they use induction forges and stuff like that, they will generally leave the power on because it's not really active, particularly if it's 24 hours a day. It's not really active unless you actually stick something in the induction coil. So you can leave them on. Also, if you think about solid fuel forges, right, you don't extinguish the flame every time you stop pumping extinguish the forge every time you stop introducing air. It just cools down a bit. And depending on the type of fuel, sometimes you actually have to actively smother it and extinguish it. Again, you generally only do that at the end of forging, not whilst you're actively using it. So Nah.
So, and the way I do it is if I'm doing something that it's gonna be, obviously, if you're coming in and out of the fire, you leave it on. I almost bought that rig that Alex Steele had put together. That's the thermocouple thing with the thermocouple, the temperature sensor, and the on-off valve for the gas, and so that it, like, you set your forge to like 1900 degrees, and then it will just turn itself on and off and maintain that constant temperature. I almost bought all those components, and it's literally only like $100 to build that setup. And that was like a 3 year ago video, and all of those components are still in my Amazon wish list. I've just never gotten around to putting that setup together. In which case, then your forge would be electronically controlled with the on and off to maintain a temperature. But since I don't have that, I if I'm not actively going in and out of the forge, say I'm done forging for a minute, now I've got to let this piece cool off, and I've got to do some cold work. I'm going to shut my forge off and brick it closed so that it maintains as much heat as possible. I don't really necessarily maintain it to the self-igniting temperature, but I also don't let it cool all the way off if I know I'm going to go back in the forge. If I know I'm going to go back in the forge, I'll relight it like once every half hour for 5 minutes, just to get it back up to temperature and keep it that temperature in there. Because if I don't, it's going to take 20 to 20 minutes ish to come back up to temperature on the inside. So I will shut it off while I do my cold work, whether I'm marking lines or having to do some grinding or drilling or whatever. And knowing I'm going to go back in the forge, I'll just make sure it stays warm enough that I don't have to spend 20 minutes heating it up, and then I'll go back in. And the only time I'm going to shut it off is when I have to, like when I'm going to shut it off and leave it, and is when I'm going to bring something up to critical, and then let it just slowly air cool or whatever. Like I've got to bring it all the way down to hold in my hand temperature without putting it in water or anything like that. In which case, we're talking a couple of hours, and I'm just going to shut it off at that point.
Hey, Roy.
So that's the way I do it.
I figured
even have
if there was going to
Roy.
be anybody on my side, it would have been Roy, and no, he leaves it on too. Jesus. All right, I'm the weirdo. I guess I'm the weirdo. Okay, here's another weird thing about Yamez that he thought y'all were weird about. I guess I leave things on, or I mean, I turn things off, and you guys all leave things on. Convenience.
It's not just convenience.
I work
It's
my computer hard. I work it so hard that I got to give it a little bit of a rest every now and then. Because, like, I'm actually looking up replacement keyboards because I pounded this thing so badly that I can't even tell the difference in the lettering, and that affects my spelling because I do look at it. I'm going, where's okay? Well, that's looks like an oh no because that's my fingertip mushed it down. Now, this eye has split open and
I
looks
li-
like an up.
I literally had to buy this keyboard because I had worn the letters off of my old
Yeah.
keyboard. Same thing. I have to look at my keyboard when I type, and I'm just like, the W, the A, the S, the D, the E, and the R are all worn smooth, and I'm just like, it's that one.
Oh yeah.
You type, and then there's this pause while you look at the blank keys to figure out which one it is that you need. uh,
Yeah, my
um
all my keys are black, but my WASD have been worn clear. Um, yeah, no, Clara's with me. All right, there you go. So yep, I turn my computer off at night. I
there was
don't.
there was there was someone else that was with you earlier too, Miss, just to let you know. Just trying
Yeah,
to scroll back and see
Ben
who
Toombs.
it was. Besides Ben Toombs. Rob Whitney is also one that
Okay,
that's with
okay,
you on your
okay.
side.
Yeah, Roy's with me too. He shuts the coal forge down between heats. Of course, it's the only way.
now, if you're running, okay, so no, you're up here in the YouTube chat.
Yeah.
You run charcoal most of
Yeah.
the time.
Yes.
do you, while you're working, do you actively walk over there and keep it going, or do you let it dwindle down? Because I know charcoal is not, it's not going to run the same as bituminous coal. Because I know, like when I went to the gathering at Josh Brown's First Degree Forge, his coal forge is anthracite, and if you ain't cranking that handle in 20 seconds, you've got no fire left, and you've got to start over. And it's like you go to the anvil, and you have just as much time as it takes you to run out of heat. You better be cranking on that handle again. And I mean, like, dude, anthracite, that was the hardest solid fuel forging I've ever done in my life. Just
Anthracite,
having to keep it lit.
So no.
anthracite
So
is easy.
with charcoal, much like, think of it like a campfire. You can let a charcoal, if you don't pump air into it, right, it can smolder for 12, 18 hours. If you walk on a campfire the next morning after you've had a night where it's burning and it's burned all the way down, you can still burn your feet. It's still hot enough to melt things and whatnot. So you can leave it, and it's smolders down. You crank some air through it, and it picks right back up as long as the fuel's still there. So yeah, no, I don't actively keep it lit
Okay.
to the point where at the end of a day of forging, I have to actively extinguish my forge, because
Okay,
otherwise, it'll keep smoldering for 12 odd hours.
okay. Can you guys
That's
hear me?
and that's that.
Yep, we can
Yeah,
hear
hold
you,
on
Adam.
just a second. That bituminous that I got from Hans, I think I still have like 400 pounds left. That stuff right there, like I can forge on my little rivet forge, and then when I'm done, I can pile the bituminous on top of it to just kind of to coke up. And 12 hours later, I can go out there and kind of move the top aside and hit that handle and just fire the forge right. It will smolder until it burns up all of that fuel. Like it'll just keep going. I found that Hans told me about that back in the day. He's like, oh yeah, if you just want to coax them up, when you're done, you just pile it up on top of where your embers are, and it will sit there and just coke up overnight. And I was like, hey, that's a good idea. And then I did that, and I'm like, man, I burned like 3 pounds of coal overnight.
I have a question for you guys now. It's a follow-up question to this whole thing. If your forge, be it charcoal or be it propane or whatever, um, were to be able to get back to working temperature in 15 to 30 seconds, would you shut your forge off while you're in the shop working?
I'm gonna go with yes.
As in, if I could relight it completely from the start in
Yeah,
15 to
you
30
you
seconds.
push the power button and then you can get back to work in about 15 to 30 seconds.
Oh, I see
That's
where you're going
that,
with this.
that's kind of a moot point, considering charcoal doesn't work that way, and neither
I,
does
I,
any other
I,
solid fuel forge, except for when Roy's working it, maybe. But no, because it would put extra strain on the components.
hmm.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Now, to we have had a question in the chat, right? Is there an advantage to using natural gas versus propane for your forge? We've so that come from Black Hole Forge. So Black Hole Forge, we've covered this in a previous episode,
We
but we'll cover
we can
quickly
go into it.
touch on
Yeah.
it here. Yeah, quickly touch on it here
So,
for you, because we are the Impractical Blacksmiths. Go ahead, Alexis.
what I was gonna say, like when I built I didn't build my shop. When I bought my house with the shop and all that, I've got the gas meter is just like right outside, right? So the gas line runs, like either underneath my garage or around it. Probably underneath it because the garage wasn't there when the house was put in. It was added after the fact. So I imagine the gas line runs right underneath my garage. So where it would go if you were talking, because basically when you lay plumbing or gas or whatever, you just make a straight line. You don't go out and in unless you have to go around something. And so where the gas line would go, under the natural gas line would go underneath my garage, is like in my garage. That's where my forge is set up, right? And I thought, because this is something, even though I used to be a plumber, this is something I'm not going to do. I would have somebody come in and find that line, tap into it, and then run natural gas, methane, right into my forge. And I thought, that'd be a great idea. The problem that I realized I'm going to have is that the line pressure on that natural gas is like 3.5 psi. and 3.5 psi of methane, that's your line pressure after your natural gas meter. You're not going to be able to run a forge on that. You're going to need the pressure that's on the other side of the meter, which is, we're talking 20, 30 psi, sometimes more, depending how far down the line, or how close to the compressor you are. Because natural gas is fed into the city's lines via a compressor. And the closer you are to it, the more pressure you have, because, as houses are taking volume away, pressure decreases the closer you get to the end of the line. And so at my house, I am literally at the end of the line. I'm going to be dealing with, not enough pressure even on the back side of the meter. Of course, tapping into the methane lines on the city side of the meter is going to get you in a little bit of trouble. But yeah, no, that's the only reason I didn't try to do it, was I wasn't going to have enough pressure to run my forge.
So Black Hole, to kind of answer your question, is there an advantage to using natural gas? It depends on a couple of things. First of all, your source. So if you have like Alexis was talking about, plumbed in, a really good example of that was Alex Steele actually used a plumbed in gas line, which was natural gas, and had to use forced air because the pressure in the lines isn't enough to be naturally aspirated, and also natural gas benefits from forced air, ribbon burner type of burner. The second thing along that is natural gas has a slightly lower BTUs, which is the units of heat, than LPG or propane. So there's that. Third is particularly, like if you're using gas bottles, for example, LPG is kind of more cost effective for most people because it's more widely available. It has that higher BTUs, and it also is much more widely available, and the fittings are generally, what you use on your barbecue, most gas forges use the same sort of fittings. And of course, you can get varying size bottles. Anything like, for example, in Australia, we use kilograms, of course. So we've got, for example, 4 kilo bottle, which is what's 2.2 pounds a kilo. So it's about an 8 pound, 9 pound bottle, up to the really big. We've got 40 kilo bottles, which are 200 odd pounds, I think. No, 90 odd pounds. So you get different size bottles. Of course, that gives you different efficiencies and all that type of thing. So it really depends on, but for another example of that is plumb gas to a house is generally cheaper. Because it's a utility, all that type of thing. So it all depends on A, your equipment, B, how you're set up, and C, the cost effectiveness for you. There is no particular advantage or disadvantage to either sort of fuel. It's on this chat on this podcast we have, I am a primary charcoal user because coal, bituminous and anthracite isn't really available in my region of Australia, and we have this ongoing quote unquote debate, what solid fuel is better.
Diamonds.
And diamonds, but at the end of the day, it depends on where you are, the cost effectiveness for you, and a lot of other factors. Charcoal, for example, is a very clean carbon source for a solid fuel. In saying that, you use more volume. Not so much more weight, because charcoal is generally lighter than most coal, so you'll use more volume of charcoal per forging than you will of coal or coke. In saying that, with charcoal, you also get less clinker because it doesn't have the volume of inclusions that coal will, being a mined product, because charcoal is grown. Charcoal is also renewable, whereas coal generally isn't considered to be a renewable resource. So again, it comes down to a lot of different factors that will be unique to you. There's no wrong answer. There's just what is more right in your situation.
I mean,
And I was going to also add in, you can buy cylinders of LNG.
Mhm.
So I mean, and achieve the pressure that you need to use natural gas or methane in lieu of propane. But it's going to cost about the same amount of money, but you're going to use more of it. So it's going to cost you about the same amount. You know, a 20-pound cylinder of LNG. I mean, it's not going to come in a 20. It's going to come in a like an acetylene bottle size, a number 3 or a number 4 bottle. So one of those of LNG is going to cost about the same as the equivalent volume of propane, but you're going to use more of it to achieve the same level of heat and whatever. So probably to the extent of 20 to 30% more fuel usage over propane butane, just because of the BTU difference. But I mean, it's totally doable if you've got it in a bottle. And if you if you, the only other thing I can think of that I didn't mention earlier is if you're in an industrial situation where like you have industrial level pressures of natural gas, that would be like awesome. Like places that run big appliances off of natural gas. I can't think of it. I've plumbed that stuff in, like boilers. I've built boilers for a college where there's a central boiler and it heats every building in this half-mile square of, you know, everything is heated by one boiler, and the natural gas line that's coming into that thing is like 6 inches in diameter, and you can't 6 inches in diameter. The volume isn't going to be enough at like 4.5 to 5 psi. So I can't remember exactly, but I want to say that was closer to like 20 psi that was going to be under. But I could be wrong. I mean, that's been 20 years ago. So if you have access to higher pressure, like piped in natural gas, like if you have a shop in a commercial district or a warehouse district or something like that that is zoned industrial, you might have access to higher pressure LNG. And if that's the case, that is going to be probably in the long run cheaper and more efficient to run than propane. But
And
in the home hobbyist sense of thing, propane.
a couple more things. So, black hole, you're talking about using charcoal from Lowe's. Now, that's barbecue charcoal. So it's particularly for someone who's new to the art of smithing.
You can get lump charcoal that's not barbecue. I mean, it is for grilling, but it's actually chunks of wood, not the pressed briquettes.
Yeah, no, but one thing I've learned through experience and being a charcoal user, you have grades of charcoal. So yeah, it is lump charcoal, but it's grilling charcoal. And the reason why I say that, and through experimentation and research, is that it's charcoal is made by cooking and burning off the impurities in the charcoal. Much like there are different grades of coal. Like the coal that you may use in a power generation, for example, you probably wouldn't, for the most part, probably wouldn't be able to use in forging. Reason being, it's got sulfur and phosphorus content. In smithing with charcoal, they kind of undercook it, and so it doesn't quite burn off all the impurities. Which is why if you ever forge with charcoal that comes from a hardware store, you'll notice it really nastily spits and pops, and you get fire fleas and all that type of thing, because they haven't cooked out all the impurities of it. Now, properly cooked charcoal for blacksmithing barely spits and pops. It will a little bit, but it doesn't do it anywhere near as much as regular, grilling charcoal. I know this because I've made my own, and yes, moisture content in charcoal can make a huge difference. So yeah, it's one of those things that comes with experience and comes with knowledge and comes with associating with blacksmiths all around the world and learning these things. Jack Pine said, about forge welding and charcoal versus forge welding and other solid fuels. The thing about it is blacksmiths have tried burning just about anything to forge throughout history, right? And I mean, back in the past, where we've done the shows on different solid fuels and stuff like that, what was it? Corn kernels have a really, really solid BTUs for forging. And we were surprised by that founding. It was like, wow, if you can't get any other fuel, use corn feed. It burns really well. It does.
Feed corn, not sweet corn. Yeah, feed corn. Drier.
Yeah, feed corn.
Yeah, so again, one of those things where blacksmiths throughout history have tried burning just about anything we can in order to forge, and we've found different things work better. Some people, someone was saying in the chat, and I can't figure it out where it is, that they get their coal for free because they can pick it up off the side of the road. Some people live in places in the world where blacksmithing coal is easily accessible and may be able to find it on the side of the road. On that same note, the US, if you live in the US, the US Geological Survey, I think up until the 60s, I don't think it has it now, but up until the 60s, you can get access to it, most of it online for free, had the chemical compositions of most coal across the US, so that you could find low sulfur, low phosphorus coal if it was in your region. So you can actually get that kind of information for free to see if that coal that you can find in your area is decent for smithing. And I believe, from memory, in the Practical Blacksmith book, it has a table in there for what's considered good blacksmithing coal versus what's not. So the percentages of sulfur and phosphorus in the coal for what is suitable for smithing coal versus not. So yeah, but that information is generally freely available online anyway because it's over 100 years old. Alexis?
Yeah, so my dad lives in over near Trinidad, Colorado. And if you're going across the road there, the mountain roads, there are areas where the road is carved through a mountain, and there's a coal seam, like a 2-foot thick coal seam, right there on the side of the road. And I mean, it is right away, so you can go chip away at it, dig it up, whatever. And I remember the last time I drove through there, I was like, I'm gonna try that. And so I stopped and I pulled out some big old chunks of coal off the side of the road to experiment with, right? Because I have no idea how it's going to work. And I don't know what grade it is or whatever. Well, in hindsight, it's lignite, all right? I couldn't remember what it was back then, but it was lignite coal. Never used it, whatever. And so I bring it home and I've got coke. So like my coal forge is all coke. There's no bituminous in it, whatever. And so I throw in some of this lignite to work it to see how this is going to work. Obviously, so it's not contaminated with bituminous or anything like that. I've got coke and then I've got some lignite I'm going to mix in, and let's see what happens. And while it did burn hot and it was usable, it popped and cracked like charcoal. And I mean it would pop violently enough that it's throwing chunks of hot coal out of the forge. Like there's a crack, and then like an ember goes flying by my head, and it was just doing this continuous pop 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 like popcorn pops, And I'm like, this isn't good. So, after going through a probably about a pound of that lignite, I decided, yeah, I'm not going to put this in the forge anymore. This is kind of dangerous. And I mean, and it's just, I mean, that's what was in that particular 2 foot seam there in, southeast Colorado. It wasn't I mean, like, yeah, it's free coal, but it is less than ideal for what I'm doing. Yeah, could I make it work? Yes. Do I want to deal with that trouble? No.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
black hole.
so
Um, Magnesium can only be forged if you use feed corn. That's why that came up.
yeah. But
A little bit of chili
and
powder.
like that's it. Good old magnesium.
Adam, do you have a charcoal retort, or do you do it a different
I
way?
no, I need to build. I need to rebuild my charcoal retort. But yes, I make it. I make it in a retort. I use a 44-gallon drum. I use a very redneck method, which is suitable. It was suitable for how I was doing it in the past. And when I rebuild my one here, I'm going to slightly modify it and basically pipe the wood gas back underneath in order to help the burn. Uh, problem, I wouldn't say the problem is, but overall, with because I use a 44, or I think you guys call them 55-gallon drum. I mean, we use British Imperial for them, so 44-gallon drum. The issue with it, with when you're making
Standard.
charcoal in a retort, it creates what's called wood vinegar, and wood vinegar over the course of a year will actually cause a corrosion of the bottom of the drum. So it's a what they call it, consumer. The drum ends up being a consumable.
Hmm.
So
What if it's made out of stainless?
it will still corrode. Stainless. Think of it this way: stainless isn't. It's a misnomer. It's not rust proof. It's just rust resistant. So it's still
Right.
going to corrode over time. You
What
probably
about
get longer out.
titanium?
I've never.
That would work.
I'm
Probably
not
would, but
trying to
at the
get
end of
you
the
a
day,
gotcha.
yeah, try and find a titanium drum of that size.
Well, you can
If you
borrow
can find
mine.
one, it'd be ridiculously
Honestly,
expensive.
honestly, if you made it out of transparent, if you made it, it doesn't even have to be a drum. It could be a box. If you made it out of transparent aluminum, you could watch it work.
You could. That would rather be cool. But yeah, um,
It's all right. You make your own charcoal. I make my own coal.
mhm.
So have you been, Adam? I mean, you moved quite a while ago. It's been a couple years.
Yeah,
Shit, it's been four
couple
or
of
five
years.
years since you moved, because you
Hmm.
moved during COVID.
Yeah,
Um, so have you been buying your charcoal since then, or have
I
you been just
prim
primarily just using gas?
I've been primarily using gas. And in the times that I have used charcoal, I have primarily bought it.
Okay.
And I freaking hate buying it. I really do. The bought stuff sucks. Put it this way: the bought stuff, comparatively speaking, is like the difference between anthracite and bituminous. It sucks. It spits, it crackles, it pops. And I have no control unless I go through and break it up. I have no control over the size. I have no control over the water content and the quality. Whereas when I make it myself, I can split the timbers to the size I need, to the quantity I need, and then as I pull it out, it's got the right. When you make charcoal for blacksmithing, you can hear as you're pulling it out if it's good or not.
Now, I have another question. So, do you know what a gasifier is?
I do.
Okay. So, if a gasifier is basically, in my mind, and I might be wrong, but I mean, if a gasifier is basically a charcoal retort that you like put in the back of a pickup truck, and the wood gas, the gas that is burning off, it's kind of the same as coking up coal, and you're piping that into your intake and burning it to run. So you can run a pickup on wood gas making charcoal. So am I correct in thinking that they're kind of the same thing?
It's
And
exactly that.
so if you could run that wood gas, I think you were talking about earlier, if you could run that wood gas back into your fire source,
Yep,
as
that's what
long
I
as
did.
it doesn't cool off and suck air back in, I mean, I mean, it just increase in efficiency.
Yeah. So on my channel, for those who haven't seen it, I actually do have, when I originally built my charcoal retort, it is literally a 44-gallon drum with holes down the bottom. So as the wood gas built up, it would force the wood gas out the bottom, and the wood gas would ignite and help keep continue cooking the whole thing. And the reason why it was at the bottom was would help prevent air sucking back in, like you're talking about. And then I would, fire it up, keep it burning for about 6 hours, and let it cool overnight. And by the next day, the charcoal was ready. Now, this is not the only way of making charcoal. It's arguably not even the best way to making charcoal. It was just the way I made charcoal that was efficient and cost effective for me, and space effective as well, because there's a traditional way of making charcoal in big mounds and where you bury it and burn it and all sorts of things, or you dig a hole and do it that way. But the retort method, the redneck retort method, was the best way for me to make it. And I wouldn't say perfected, but I've perfected my version of how to make it, which, resulted in of a 44 or 55-gallon drum of charcoal, 90% of it was cooked great. And, I would get out of a drum with, say 14 days of solid forging, 8-hour days of forging out of a 55-gallon drum. So,
Was it
that's go.
was it Matthew that tried to make charcoal and somehow he didn't seal it up right or whatever, air got in, and when he went the next day, when he went to open it up, he had a barrel full of ash?
I don't remember if it was Matthew, but
That's what would
I
happen
do
to me.
remember what you're talking about.
I want to say, God, it was either Matthew or it was a Chandler video, but I remember watching a video back in the day. It's like, I'm gonna make my own charcoal, and then like opened it up and like, yeah, oxygen got into the barrel, and it was just a barrel full of ash. And I was like, oh, that's gotta suck, because the
Yeah,
amount of work that goes into, like, filling the barrel with wood that's all the right size, and then building a fire under it and all that, and then and then like overnight all the wood in the barrel burned. Like, well,
yeah,
that's not the way it's supposed to work.
no, and that comes down to how you cook it and all that type of stuff. But yeah, so I mean, there's nuances to it. And like Trail Dust said, I have a lot of trees that get blown down each year. That's, I've got a lot of dead wood on my property as well, and that's the reason why, again, charcoal is cost effective for me, because apart from the effort that goes into making it, it doesn't cost me much. It costs me fuel of the chainsaw and the electricity for the log splitter. Because I don't know if you guys have watched it, but that guy that the American guy that does the splitting videos with the different splitting malls and stuff like that, even he hates splitting Australian hardwoods because they're a pain in the fucking ass. So that's the reason why I got an electric log splitter, because it's just easier to put them in there and go press a button and it splits it, rather than trying to swing and I have done it by hand, and I've done it by hand for a long time, but now I'm not old enough and ugly enough to buy the equipment to do it.
And I know I asked you this last show. What's the species you have on your property there?
I have several species, but I've got white gum or ghost gum, and I've also got Carpentaria ironwood, which is one of the hardest
That's
hardest
this
woods in the
wood.
world. Yeah, that is like, even green. It's harder when it's dead, but even green, it will send an axe blunt, it'll send a chainsaw blunt before it even gets through it.
So a question: how does that burn? Like, does that burn like long and hot,
Really,
or?
yeah, really well. It burns really well as a firewood. And even old mate that does the splitting, I forget what his name is, but even old mate that does the splitting, he loves using it because he's in California, so he clears a lot of gum because it's an introduced pest species over there. It's the reason why California has such bad wildfires, or part of the reason. But it burns hot and it burns for a long time. As a wood. So as like without charcoal, making it charcoal, it burns hot and for a long time. It's also very dense. So when you make it a charcoal, it's still very dense. It's still very
Oh, really?
yeah. So it's and with Jake up the road, I've now used bituminous coal, and I
Oh,
can
yeah,
on it
yeah.
like yeah. So I've now used bituminous coal because he had some brought up, and I can honestly say I still prefer charcoal. It smells better. Bituminous fucking reeks. It's horrible.
I love the smell of coal, though. I love the smell of burning coal. I don't know why.
If you haven't smelt burning gum, charcoal.
No,
It's got
no,
this.
I haven't. Not
Um,
gum.
yeah, but
Oak and
yeah,
mesquite.
yeah, but so yeah, I can honestly say it's still comparatively speaking, I still use more charcoal, but not much for
Okay.
like using Australian hardwood charcoal. I do use more, but not much.
So have you made any charcoal with the ironwood, or
Yeah,
no?
I have.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. Not on this block. I haven't on this block. But I have made it with ironwood and the gums that we have, and that's why I say comparatively speaking, I know that whilst I use so for example, let's say a 10 liter bucket. I'm not sure what size you guys. What's 10 liters? Ten
Five
liters
gallon.
is
That's a
yeah,
it's a 5 gallon bucket.
yeah. So a 5 gallon bucket, for example, of coal, I might use a bucket and a half of Australian hardwood charcoal. So comparatively speaking, it's a little bit more,
Okay.
but not much more. You know.
That's
So
fair.
yeah. But that again, that's in my situation with the charcoal that I make from my area. That's not true of all hardwoods, and that's not true of all regions.
No, no, I was just curious, I mean, because like I said, I mean, it's the way we forge I mean, like we're way off center of where we started, but that's okay because that's the nature of the show. Is it's like let's chase squirrels, right? And yeah, I mean, what you're gonna forge with is largely determined by where you're at. I mean, like if you're in an area where there's, a coal mine and you can get a pickup load of coal for $40, and I mean, like I used to live in a place where that's a fact. You could drive out to the Coal King mine, and they would fill up the back of your truck with as much coal as it would hold, like running over with chunks of coal this big for $40, and then just drive it home. I mean, like $40 for a pickup load. If you're in an area where you can get coal like that, even if it's lignite or anthracite or whatever, that is going to be the most cost-effective way for you to make heat. But if you're in like California, where like that stuff is just basically banned, the only option you're going to have is propane. But
Yeah.
then if you're like you in Australia or like Jack up there in the northwest, where coal can be, I mean, like, well, you can get coal, and I like to think it's about the same. From talking to Jack and talking to Tim, it's about the same difficulty in getting coal. It's super expensive and it's hard to find, but you can get it, right? And so in those locales, charcoal is going to be your way to go. And then and me in Texas, I can get propane all day, every day, anywhere. It's not necessarily cheap because the amount of RVs that we have around here, probably there's 300,000 people that live here, and there's probably 300,000 people that work here that don't live here. And so a very large portion of them live in RV parks around here, and they all run off propane. So propane's kind of a high demand fuel, so it's expensive, right? So I can get propane all day. It costs a little bit of money. But if I want to get coal, I've got to drive 4 hours one way to go get coal. And I mean, like, 50, it's a 300-mile drive for me to go one way to go get coal. So 600. It takes a full day, 600 miles round trip to go get a 50-pound bag of coal or coke. And that's really not very cost effective. Other than I need to have it from time to time for certain things. So when I need to make that run, I will make that run.
Kevin
And go ahead, Ramis.
Kevin likes to bring us back to topic, so I will read his comment. And I'd like an answer. When you're making charcoal, do you shut your retort on and off?
No,
Okay.
I leave it running while I'm making the charcoal.
Man, that's dangerous. What a waste of energy.
But I mean, so, and I mean, this kind of ties in with Black Hole's original question as well, in the sense of Jack Pine's. I remember when Jack Pine started and started YouTube and stuff like that. He had a wood burning forge, so it was a solid fuel forge, but it used wood, not charcoal, not bituminous or anything like that. It just used wood.
That's what I
And in the
started with.
process, it reduced it down to charcoal and whatnot. So I mean, again, saying that, blacksmiths have tried to burn freaking just about anything throughout history. Also, in bringing into what Alexis was saying about you can drive up to a mine and get coal. If you can still do that, again, check the US Geological Survey, make sure that the coal in your area is suitable for blacksmithing, because if you stick steel into coal that has a high phosphorus or sulfur content, it will cause your iron and steel to crumble. Steel and iron do not like sulfur or phosphorus. It's horrible stuff for it, because it will absorb that those elements and make your steel brittle. So yeah, just make sure you check your geological survey to make sure that the phosphorus and sulfur content is lower, because you don't want to be, make all that effort and spend all that money and whatnot, and to get a ton of coal that is practically useless for you, or detrimental to what you're doing. But yeah, so if go ahead, Alexis. I'm gonna say if I could drive 4 or 5 hours to go and get coal, I would too. But the closest coal mines that I'm aware of approximately 25 hours away.
Ooh.
By drive, yeah.
That's that's the same as me driving to Pennsylvania to go pick it up from Hans's house myself.
Yeah, we'll put it this way: I have to drive to Queensland, so it's a 16-hour drive to the border from where I live, and then it's another several hours. It's another 10 odd hours to get to where the mines are, and then to pick it up and then drive back. So yeah, nah.
Right.
Well, and I'm not even sure that's good blacksmithing charcoal, blacksmithing coal.
Right. Yeah, because if it's a power plant coal, it's most likely going to be anthracite, because it crushes up into a powder easier and cleaner, because in a power plant they inject the coal as a dust, just almost the same as like a diesel fuel injector. It's the same thing, but it's injecting micro powdered coal into a flame that just burns continuously. And which is a whole fascinating thing to me. But that is most likely, because anthracite is the most efficient for
I was going to say Australia. So surprisingly, there's actually several different quote unquote colors of coal, and black coal, for example, is generally what's in the US. Australia actually exports some of the biggest amounts of brown coal in the world. So brown
coal is lignite.
Yeah. So that's generally, like, not all of the coal in Australia is brown coal, but there's a good percentage of it which is. And so most of the coal mines here in Australia a good majority of them are brown coal mines. So then you've got green coal as well, which is a different one as well.
That's
And what I wanted
uranium.
to ask you just a second ago that I was thinking of was, would it be if you were to just like so you're running a charcoal forge in Australia, you know, with your woods that you have available or the charcoal that you have available, would it be less efficient to, you know, just like put some sticks in the forge and let them burn down and turn into charcoal as you're forging, or would that be more detrimental to uh, the forging process? Because I don't know. I mean, like, and
You
I'm
know,
not being facetious. I literally because you were mentioning Jack putting wood in his forge earlier, and I do remember that. And I mean, like, okay, so why isn't that a thing?
And mainly because you could. I mean, I start my forge with sticks and stuff like that because it does burn down. But you're kind of losing efficiency because half the energy is going into turning it into charcoal.
Well,
You
what
know,
about this?
Okay.
What about this? What about this? Build a fire pot that has an induction forge ring in it, um, and you push the button to get a piece of steel in the fire pot red hot, and then you load your coal or your solid fuel into it. It's like a push button starter for a forge, for a solid fuel
well,
forge.
the issue with that is most coils are made out of copper, so by the time you got up the forging temperature for
Mm.
iron, it would melt the coil.
So you have it around the fire pot built around the fire pot so that the fire pot is what gets red hot to light the lignite or to light the coal, and then
That
you turn off the fire
and
pot.
an induction coil only heats metal.
Yeah, I know, but the metal will get hot.
Because
The
it moves molecules
the,
back and you know.
the metal
Okay.
gets hot, which then lights the solid fuel.
I got you. I got you. It's kind of like the Luke Skywalker, or the lighting the forge backwards. You know, using the hot metal to light the forge or whatever.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's. I've actually done that. That is so inefficient. But
But
uh, no, not
Um,
with the coil, but like with taking the red hot steel and lighting a forge with a piece of red hot steel.
yeah,
mm.
it's the easiest way to do it.
No, it's not the easiest way to do it. It's actually the hardest way to do it. It's much easier to take charcoal lighter fluid and spray it all over the top of the coal and then hit it with a cigarette lighter. Forge is lit. It literally took less than half a second. When you try to light a forge with a piece of red hot steel, you're going to spend 10 minutes trying to make a fire. So
Nothing
it
worth
is not
doing.
the easiest way to do it.
Nothing worth doing was ever done quick.
Well, that's not what she said. Well, maybe that is what she said. Damn it.
Take your time, get the forge lit, then you start sticking things in it.
Got to warm it up like an oven.
So
I want to watch American Pie movies.
Black Hole just asked me what is green coal. So brown coal is lignite. Black coal is bituminous, subbituminous, and anthracite. I'm just again, I don't use coal much and have much to do with coal. So I'm not 100% sure what the locally green coal is just coal that hasn't been coked. However, as a term in industry, I am not 100% sure what green coal is. I'm trying to look it up at the
Uranium.
moment. Um, but
Green
yeah,
coal, I think, is bituminous. But
It's
I know that the brown coal was lignite because
yeah.
the coal that I picked up off the side of the road there in Colorado, which is lignite, does kind of have a brownish hue to it. I mean, it's black, but it has a brownish hue to it. So I can see why somebody would call it brown coal because when you look at it and you know it kind of like, you know, if you're familiar with iron pyrite and the way iron pyrite kind of reflects colors, Well, coal does that as well. Not anthracite, but bituminous and lignite both do. And they kind of reflect colors from their surface. And bituminous kind of reflects a green sheen, and lignite reflects a brown sheen on its natural fractured surfaces. And I, you know, when I picked up that lignite off the side of the road, not knowing what type of coal it was, not knowing anything about it other than I know this is coal and I'm going to see how it burns. I did notice that the sheen was different than what I was used to, and I was like, huh, how about that? Interesting. Um, so yeah, lignite would be brown coal, and I believe bituminous would be green coal. And all of the anthracite I've ever seen is just like flat black. Like it doesn't have a sheen, it doesn't have a shiny. It's just flat black because it has fewer impurities. And I'm imagining that the impurities have a lot to do with that surface reflectivity.
Yeah,
And this is all just off the top of my head.
yeah, and also bear in mind that these are, for example, industry terms here in Australia as well. They're not like it's like different, like we've discussed it before on the show. Particularly with Roy, where or we've just also discussed it in Roy's live streams, where an AC or HVAC person in Michigan, for example, will have different terminologies to someone in California or someone in Australia. So these are colloquial terminologies that I have heard in passing. Again, I'm not someone that's worked in the coal industry, nor have I had much to do with it. So these are just terms I've heard in passing regarding coal in Australia. So brown coal is generally lignite, and it's generally accepted to be lignite. The black coal is generally accepted to be bituminous or anthracite or whatnot. But again, those terms may be slightly different depending on the region that you're in. So green coal, for example, does make sense, and I have seen it also in person where bituminous can have a greenish. I kind of refer it to a shitty type color tinge where it looks like it can look like excrement. That's what the greeny of the bituminous is. It's not like a green of Alexis's shirt. It's just a greenish tinge, as opposed to being a matte black or a gloss black that anthracite or charcoal will get. So again, it is a colloquialism. Don't quote me on it. Don't use me as a source on that one.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
So real quick to
Deranged
answer.
Metalworks brought up or not a great, but an interesting point. What if you put the induction coil around the clinker breaker in the bottom of the forge to keep it lit, or to light the because if you make if you say you've got is it who makes those fire pots with the clinker breaker, fire furnace forge, FFF. If you have one of those with an induction coil around the bottom, right, and you've got that triangle shaped clinker breaker, and you make that clinker breaker glow, and it's going to light up the stuff on top. I doubt you're going to get that thing hot enough to melt or deform. Well, maybe deformation might be an issue in the rod that goes through it to make it rotate. But that is kind of an interesting thought. If like maybe not necessarily the clinker breaker, but in the bottom area of the forge, if you had an induction coil, you could just like flip a switch and turn your coal forge on. I mean, the idea is fascinating to me. I don't have an induction forge, so there's no way I could test that, but it does seem fun. And then somebody else said something. John asked if Hans got his coal at a mine. No, he got his coal from the local co-op. They would bring in. At the time they would bring in a truckload a year, and his cost was $4 a 40-pound bag. So he paid $1 per 10 pounds for it, and then he sold it to us for $6 a bag. And he would, back in the day, he would order a half a ton of coal to resell to us, and he'd make 50% or not, 50% profit on the transaction, and which for us, I mean, like $6 a bag for a 40-pound bag is a great freaking deal.
When it's
I mean,
25
because
bucks
even
a
Kevin
bag
can
at the
tell you, I
guild.
mean, like, Yeah, it's 25 bucks a bag or $30 a bag or something like that, you know. And so like that was the best deal on stuff, but he was buying it already bagged, but by the ton. You know what I mean? So instead of buying it by the bag, he was buying it by the ton, and it worked out to like $4 a bag. That's why he was able to sell it to us so cheap. I do not know where the co-op got it from or whatever, because they were just plain white plastic bags with coal in them. They didn't say smithing coal on them. They didn't say nothing else. They were just plain white bags with coal. And what the co-op does with them, besides sell them to Hans, I have no idea.
A lot of
So are you
coal
in the
and
sea,
a
Ahmed?
lot of coal heaters over there. A lot of coal furnaces over there.
And
But
that's kind of what I was thinking, because the way his house is like a log-fired boiler, you know.
yeah, and also to Turtle Dust saying that he's got 200 pounds from Quad State that he wants to bring to a smithing class to learn how to use it. You know, I have videos of how to work with coal right here on this channel. You know, just letting you know that they exist.
And and Roy has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of video using bituminous coal.
Yes, but I have one specifically for teaching people how to start a coal fire.
Yep, yep. But yes. Um,
Um,
and
I hate to do it because we've had such a freaking long, great conversations of various things. We have to move on to our final thoughts.
on the go.
I got to get to work.
Yep.
Yeah, but
Well, you want?
So my final thoughts. I'm going to go ahead and knock this one out. My final thoughts are just leave your computer on. It's got sleep mode. You don't need to turn that shit off. It's a waste of time. Yamez. I know I'm preaching. I know you're the only one I'm talking to, because you're the only human on earth that turns their shit off all the time. So just turn it off, or leave it on. Walk away from it, and no worries. The only really exception I would do that, or I would say to that, is if it's really loud, right? So it's like my cousin's got a computer that's got a really loud fan on it, and like it's all the way at the other end of the shack, and I can hear that fan running in my room, and it's just like, man. Anyways, you know, I obviously it's your discretion, and you know, I mean, like Adam and I, we just leave our shit on all the time because that's just the way we've always done it. And you know, and Yamez turns it off because it's like less power consumption. It's to each your own, and the same thing with the forge. You know, I mean, leave it on, turn it off, leave it on, turn it off. It depends on the situation. So whatever. It's all pointless conversation, anyways. It's just fun to have the conversation. So y'all have a great 2 weeks. Find that thing that makes you smile, and work at being happy every day, because happiness is descent. So catch you guys in 2 weeks.
My final thoughts. Yep, leave it on. You don't turn your fridge off. You know, when it's closed. It's constantly running. But also use the fuel that suits you, and also in the power saving and all that type of thing. You know, it's recently been proven beyond reasonable doubt that you know, when your air conditioners, be it heating or cooling, leave them on. Once you start them up, set them to a temperature, leave them on. It actually costs less and is cheaper to keep that temperature constant than it is if you go out and you turn your AC off. Then it has to struggle to bring it back to the temperature that it's and runs less efficiently to bring it back to the temperature that you've got it set on. So leave it on. On that note, have a good one, everyone. Stay safe. Get out and hit something if you can. If you can't, find another creative outlet for yourself and be happy. And Yamez, your turn.
All right, yep. So y'all have got me convinced. I am going to uh, leave all of my vehicles running at all times. My diesel running at all times. All the work trucks running at all the time. My ovens, my air fryer. I'm going to leave those up at 450 at all times. I'm gonna bypass the timers and the overheat protections so that they do not stop running I'm going to have my coffee maker just constantly churning. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a direct drip from my water heater so that the hot water goes in, out, and then like a steady stream. I'll figure out exactly how much is boiled off and evaporates, so that it is constantly running and making constant coffee. I'll get a little conveyor belt, fresh beans, so that anytime I want, just boom, boom, fresh coffee, and just what, some of it gets wasted. Oh well. I'm just gonna constantly everything on. Let me think. What else can I leave on? Okay. Lights, fans. Yeah, I'm gonna leave
Where's the Yama's mute
everything on.
button? God
I'm
damn it.
gonna leave everything on. That is the takeaway from here. We're switching from paper to plastic to paper. Protect the trees, save the turtles. Don't burn anything. Burn everything. Leave everything off. Leave everything on. Ah, but I'm still gonna turn my computer off when I'm not using it. Everything else is gonna stay on. But I'm gonna leave my computer off. Turn my computer off. That's the way turning your computer off is dissent. Fight the power. Anyway, thank you guys all. We for as ridiculous of a concept of this episode was, it actually was a very interesting conversation, and I'm glad that we did it. And I have no regrets. So I think I'm gonna go get a tattoo, but it has to be a tattoo from a tattoo guy who leaves his gun running here, his tattoo gun running all the time, right across here. No regrets, turn it on. You know,
No regrets.
no regrets, leave it
Regrets.
on. So
Not even one.
not even one. Say maybe to drugs. All
Well, I know
right,
that's
guys.
right.
You guys have a wonderful day. We'll see you in a few weeks here, couple of weeks here. Maybe I'll be in a better mood.
Pop in for after show if you want.
Boom. I'm gonna get yelled at. Adios.
All right. Bye.